operational service, and the target is that it becomes fully operational within the next 3 years or so. So it's a fast-track service. We don't benefit from these long preparatory activities, but I will explain you that we don't completely start from scratch either. So I will try to use this. Okay. So what is the goal? What is the vision for the C3S, Copernicus Climate Change Service? We would like to become, to make it an authoritative source of climate information for Europe. The second element is that we want to build on national investments and complement the national climate service providers. We don't want to reinvent the wheel, we want to add value to what is already existing. And the third element, which is also something that DG GROW is quite keen on, is to support the market for climate services in Europe. So we try to address three questions. First, how is the climate changing? So here we are talking about Earth observations. And we heard about Earth observations this morning already. We mentioned the Sentinels. Sentinels will become an asset for the Copernicus Climate Change Service, but we need more. So the contributing missions and the in-situ observations are essential for the climate if you want to put the current climate in perspective to what has happened in the past. So Earth observations, reanalysis, which is a way of combining observations and modeling, and I will give you a few examples later on. So that's the first question. Second one, will climate change continue and accelerate? So we want to facilitate access to a number of products in prediction and projection timescales. And what are the societal impacts? So here we are talking about climate indicators, either generic or targeted to specific economic sectors that have been identified by the European Commission as very important. So the organization of the service, so I'm talking about the future because we are starting, so I won't have so many fancy results to show as Vincent already did this morning, but I will talk about the organization. So we will have, in fact, 4 building blocks. I will start with the third first. Climate data store, this is where all the information will be accessible by the users, so observations, reanalysis, projections, seasonal forecasts, and so forth. The sectoral information system, which will be targeted at a number of economic sectors, which I will cover later. And then an evaluation and quality control function, which will make sure that the data which are in the climate data store meet the requirements of the user and also act upon if this is not the case. So make recommendations, assess the quality, and so forth. So modeling plus observation, this is at the heart of the Copernicus Climate Change service. As I said at the beginning, we don't start from scratch. We have already a community around climate services. We have our member states, we have the EU member states, we have initiatives at ESA, EUMETSAT, EA has already a prominent role in providing information for climate services. We have the WMO, a global framework for climate services. And then we have some FP7 Horizon 20 research activities. So there is already an ecosystem, which is very rich, but also very complex. I discovered that when I started to do this job. So sometimes it's scarily complex. So we have to extract most of what is existing and add value to this. So we are talking about observations and also modeling. And this is the heart of the climate data store. So the sectoral information system, we want to provide climate indicators which are relevant for a number of different sectors, and I list a few here, and I will give you the list that has been sort of indicative, but that we have taken on board for the next few years. The evaluation and quality control is about really making sure that everything that is being done and that is being produced is fit for purpose. So a number of tasks will be dedicated within this component. It's constant monitoring, quality control, and also feedback to the production, and also to the research communities if there is a gap between what the service is providing and what the users want. So there is a dialogue between the research agenda and the operational agenda that Copernicus is going to cover. Now, so we have the climate data store, the sectoral information system, and the evaluation and quality control. And the fourth dimension is about outreach and dissemination. To some extent, it's what I'm doing today. But it's not only that. So it's media, it's education, it's talking to authorities, preparing bulletins, reports, and also addressing the general public about the issue about climate change. Now we'll go one by one through the different pillars to explain you in more detail what the content will be. So the first, the climate data store. What are we going to have? So first we'll have observed an observed dimension. So the idea is to build essential climate variables for atmosphere, ocean, land. So they will be observed, they will be reanalyzed, and they will be simulated. So if I start with the observations, so we will support the generation of Earth observed observation-based essential climate variable data sets. We will also support the access to historical observations which are relevant for the service. Then we have the reanalyzed activities. So ECMWF is not only operating the Copernicus Climate Change Service, but also contributing to it directly through some industrial activities, and reanalysis, global reanalysis is one of them. So I will spend a minute or two about reanalysis to explain you what it's about. It's really about putting together observations and models through a big engine called data assimilation, which I'm emotionally attached to. And so what are we talking about here is really looking at what is happening between, let's say, the last century or the century before and today. So we integrate data from multiple observing systems in a constant manner to have a view of the global climate. So reanalysis is using modern modeling tools to reanalyze observations from the past, and it produces a consistent reconstruction of the recent climate. So it assimilates a large variety of data from in situ and satellites, and the sentinels will contribute to this activity. And by the way, generates also very large data volumes, which is another issue when we are talking about user uptake of these data sets. So the ERA interim reanalysis, which is the current reanalysis performed at ECMWF, has already a free and open data policy, so it will feed into the Copernicus Climate Change Service. It will be followed by a new reanalysis, which is at a higher resolution, where all the problem we have today will have been mostly fixed, and we plan to start this activity before the end of this year. Already today, we have about 20,000 registered users, so there is a large community using reanalysis data sets. It's very well quoted in the scientific literature, and it's used by many sectoral applications which are relevant for the Copernicus Climate Change Service. So we see global reanalysis as a very important critical asset to the Copernicus Climate Change Service. We'll also have a regional reanalysis, which will be outsourced and done by the partners in Europe for addressing issues which are more local than what we are doing at ECMWF. So, an example, 2014, was it the warmest year on record or not? So there was a lot of publicity at the end of, or in January this year. And what we believe is that the estimates, which are based on station data alone, do not account for variability at high latitudes, because there are no observations there. So that's what the global reanalysis is bringing, by assimilating satellite data, putting some model into the system, and doing this data assimilation, which is an optimal way of combining observations and models. And in our case, we could find that maybe 2014 was not the warmest year because of the Antarctica, which you can see is a bit colder over there. So there is some potential. I'm sorry about the layout. It worked perfectly on my Mac, but apparently there is a problem of font here. And reanalysis is also providing a diverse set of climate change indicators, global mean surface temperature, total energy, thermal energy, and so forth. So there is a big potential in providing some of the essential climate variables through reanalysis. So, observed, reanalyzed, and simulated. So in the Copernicus Climate Change Service, in C3S, we will also have multimodal seasonal forecast products, and we will also facilitate access to climate projections. So we are not planning to procure the production of these projections, because it's already done by the community, but to facilitate access, ensure that there is an operational access to the data, and also some tools to make use of this data. And this is what we plan to do in the C3S. For the sectoral information system, so we are talking about tailored climate indicators for first our primary user, so it's the European Commission, so via the EA and the Climate Adapt platform, but also directly to DigiClima and other directions as well. But we also have science users and innovation and business development. So we will not only provide data sets and climate indicators, but also tools and good practices, so that downstream services can start from there and generate additional activities. The goal at the end of the exercise, which is 2020-2021, is to cover around 30 essential climate variable data sets. Some of them are GCOS ECVs, some of them are more relevant for the sectors that we are talking about. And then we plan to cover around 10 economic sectors. These are the sectors that we've been tasked to cover, and we are already procuring some activities to derive specific climate indicators for these sectors. Evaluation and quality control. So this task is to ensure that the service delivers state-of-the-art climate information to end users and remains state-of-the-art. So identifies the gaps in the service, bridges Copernicus with the research agenda, as I mentioned earlier, and there is also the task of monitoring continually the quality of the products. So it's, if you wish, our quality assurance body for the service. It's a bit too fancy, this. Okay, and outreach and dissemination, which is the last pillar. So there are several aspects to it. So web content provision and management, we will try to put as much as we possibly can on our website in terms of information, interfaces to service elements. It's about public outreach, so all media. Production, we are thinking about the production of an annual state of climate for Europe, and we have started to do it already with our reanalysis, which is what we have at the moment, because we are just procuring the activities for the other data sets, and also providing this information to downstream service providers. Coordination with national outreach efforts. As I said earlier, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We don't want to do what the national authorities are doing, but we want the national authorities or the national climate service providers to take advantage of what we are going to give them as boundary conditions, as global information, and so forth. Liaison with public authorities, so we want to communicate on the C3S products, and then there will be a number, and we have started that, a number of events, workshops, training and education program, etc. So, the Copernicus Climate Change Service bring a unique pan-European dimension to climate services, build upon, complement and add value to current capabilities in Europe, provide a one-stop shop, access to quality assured climate information, authoritative climate information, tools and good practices, facilitate the uptake and growth of the climate service market, and plays a cross-cutting role and exploit synergies with other Copernicus services. I mean, there was a brilliant talk by Alan this morning about the global land, and it is clear that there are synergies between the climate change service and the land service. We need each other. It's at least twofold. In in terms of climate modeling, we need the boundary conditions and the exchange of energy, but also on the sectoral applications, we need socioeconomic data sets, we need land use data set for deriving this tailored product. So there is synergy, and it's the same with the marine service, the atmosphere monitoring service. So there is it is really a cross-cutting service. So last, I think last but one slide. Copernicus has a website now, the Copernicus Climate Change Service, climate.copernicus.eu. So I really encourage you to look at it. We try to put news and events, background information on the service, also information on tenders, ITTs, and proof of concept information products such as reanalysis. So on the tender bullet, I take this opportunity to really look at it first, and also trigger your networks to make sure that you respond to these ITTs. We are not going to, ECMWF is not going to do the service. I think that in terms of industrial activity, ECMWF is doing about 15% or 20% of the service. All the rest is outsourced. So there are many opportunities for the community to contribute, and the success of the service will come from the community contributing to this service. So I took a screenshot yesterday about our website. So there are tenders which are out there on the communication and climate projections, on the software development for the climate data store. So there are really opportunities for the community to contribute, whether at national level, SMEs, whatever. It's about really coming back to us with ideas in the development of this service. So I hope that I convince you to have a look at this website. And I will stop here. So as I said, it's still early days. We are not operational, far from it. We are setting up the scene. We are putting a lot of activities out for the community to respond, and I hope that you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Noel, for a very clear presentation of what would become a very exciting service. I have loads of questions myself, but I think we can check with the audience first if there are any questions on the Copernicus Climate Change Service. There is a microphone out there. Maria has one. So please, hands up. I understand people are a bit tired, but they're very tired.
That's the nap time effect.
There's a question.
Yes. Thank you, Jean-Noel. I've got a question on the mechanism. If you see that there is need for further research in an area, and then the research community is perhaps also aware of that, but how will the mechanism to research calls be? Is there any more information you can give, or a vision how that would work in the smoothest way, to really allocate the money where it's needed?
So DG Grow is putting a mechanism in place so that we can voice the needs coming from the users, and then this is communicated to DG Research. And whether it's taken on board or not is a different matter, but there is a process which is starting to be put in place, and it's discussed at the Copernicus User Forum and the Copernicus Committee. So there is a process, and so what is important is really to have this feedback from the community about the gaps in the service, and there will be some gaps, and we will, as a service provider, identify elements where perhaps there is a need for further research, and then inform the research agenda that way. And this evaluation and quality control will play a major role in this. And it's independent, it's outsourced, so there is no conflict of interest, if you see what I mean. It's not going to be ECMWF saying we need to do this, this, and this to improve the system. It will be an independent body advising on that.
Okay, then I think I will allow myself to ask a question myself. Jean-Noel, I understand much of what you presented is still in an early implementation state, but of course I would assume that many of the users are very interesting to know when will we see the first products coming out from this service, and where can we get them?
So where you will get them is from our portal, which is under construction, but we have an interim portal where we already start to put products from reanalysis, which is what we have at the moment. We have already issued a number of ITTs on the sectoral information system and also on the seasonal forecast. We are in negotiation phase with providers, and we plan to start activities either before the end of the year or early 2016, with the goal of having the first products available, let's say 1 year later. So it is coming, be patient, it's coming.
Okay. And, well, in the audience we have the research community, we have public sector agencies, we have also small and medium-sized enterprises. And you mentioned the buzzword, call for tender. So there is money to earn, is that right understood? Just to wake up a few people in the audience.
There is money to earn, yes. Have a look. It's all explained here. I'm not going to say the numbers here. But yes, there are a lot of opportunities. I hope that SMEs as well as national entities will be interested in contributing.
Thank you very much, Jean-Noel. And a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And of course you get the magic book.
Oh, thank you.
And again, it's in Swedish, so we hope that you come back soon.
But there are a lot of photos.
There are some figures as well.
Okay.
There are so many satellite images. Thank you.